All right, Kenny, man, that blockchain stuff is sort of fascinating. I think our next guest can shine some light on it. How about introducing our next guest, Kenny?
Love to, Eric. Our next guest is THerese Sullivan, principal of buildingcontext.me. THerese is a very special professional. She's a writer, technologist, and marketing professional that provides news and analysis for commercial building systems integrators, facility managers, and real estate professionals about innovations into building automation. She's our eyes and ears from Silicon Valley. Welcome to the show, THerese Sullivan.
Hey, THerese, welcome to the show.
Hey, hi, Ken and Eric.
It's good to see you. Good to see you.
It's so fun.
Yeah. Well, we have a good time, and I think the last time we had a good time, we were out in at Realcomm IBCon, right? So I want to talk about that. But before we do that, you've been busy. What's been going on with you?
I have been busy. There's always a lot of deadlines. And at IBCon, I was meeting with Scott Minch, who probably saw us huddling up in the near his booth writing with my pen. And we got a great article out in Automated Buildings, which I think is an important one about Haystack and about J2's FinStack product, because they have the new FinStack 4. So they have a push right now. But what Scott did was much more of a tutorial that we worked on together, and he really wrote it. I just I'm sort of the pusher nagger and
so
get it into print.
Yeah.
But he really gave the 6 return on investment avenues that you get when you really set up a database for metadata tagging. And that article was in the July Automated Buildings, and really good article if you want to understand what's going on.
Well, let's talk about this a minute, THerese, because, you do some really incredible stuff in terms of, nagging to make sure stuff gets done. I think, one of the things you've done for people in our industry, and we Kenny and I talked earlier in the show about Haystack and what you did for them in terms of their blog and fixing that. But you really sort of offer a great writing skill, social media, blogs. Talk a bit about what you do and how people in our industry can benefit from your services.
Right. I think, you know how philosophical Ken Sinclair is. And he once said, which very resonated with me, that I'm a weaver. And actually my Irish name, Breslin, in Gaelic means weaver. And I'm a weaver of thoughts. And there's not very many of those in our industry that has a real grip on what I can't say all, but a good number of the important players are doing, and how that weaves together, how all that works together. So when I work on stories, they're usually of a level that aren't it's not particularly promotional about what you're selling right now, but the whole solution as it fits into the industry.
No,
you're bringing.
I think so, THerese, and I think Haystack's a great example. I think the thing you did with Scott mentioned, J2 is a great example, and I think that more and more we're finding that you better have a social presence and a media presence, and you sort of better know what you're doing too, and that's where I'm going to go ahead and give you a shameless plug right now. That's where I think you can come in and really help people out. And THerese, is your blog is buildingcontext.me. It's very, very current, so I would encourage our community if you're looking to sort of have an impact digitally, I think THerese brings a lot to the table regarding that.
Right.
So THerese, listen, we've had about a month or so to sort of sit back after Realcomm IBCon. Do you have any takes or any takeaways after thinking about it for a month? What's sort of still in your mind and standing out?
There's a number of things on my mind and standing out. I think we all came back with a stack of cards and follow-up to do. But one of the things that I realized, and it's pulling again on this social media thread and being a weaver, is we have such a powerful tool in Twitter these days. And at IBCon, I got to meet face-to-face with some of the people that I've only been calling on. And there's so many social media experts that are joining our community that are using Twitter in a really effective way. So how to help them has been one of the things I've really been ruminating. Is they tend to be younger. Our industry is pretty complex when you think of all the audiences and all the topic areas, from demand response to building commissioning to comfort and at IBCon out enforce all of our corporate real estate people, how they work, what their concerns are, who the players are. Pulling that all together for a new person to our industry is tough. And I think when you're hired to be the voice, the Twitter voice, it's even harder. So I've been kind of ruminating on how to make that easier for them.
THerese, I have to, what you had written recently, it's a testament to that and the importance and the criticality. You made an analogy, and not to be political, but you mentioned that without payment or permission, Donald Trump amassed 1 million Twitter followers and is now releasing information on such a timely basis that it's an extraordinary event. Just to give it an impact, if you can't harness the Twitter and the power of Twitter and have an expert servicing your needs socially, it's a huge advantage to an organization.
Right. And the fact that he tweets himself, I mean, I think this division of labor, sometimes people trip on that. And he certainly trips on it. Not that he's a hero, but I just, or a villain. I'm not getting political about this, but I think you just have to take stock that he didn't need the New York Times. And actually, I think the number now of his followers is like 8 million or something, is that he made his own mistakes and he made his own coups, if you will, using Twitter. And that cut out all this like needing to buy TV time, needing to own the New York Times in a PR sense.
Right, because they used to block it. If they didn't, if you didn't pay and you didn't play the game and let them allow them to influence what you were trying to say, you didn't get the media time.
Right. So just to notice that, take stock of that for a second, and then look at our own industry. In the past, Gartner Group, for example, in IT, you had to go through Gartner Group if you wanted to get your message out or to get on their quadrant. He's kind of saying all those middlemen, maybe, and PR, it's not Gartner, it's the PR agencies, it's the analysts, it's the your own corporate communications department, all the gatekeepers that were crafting the message. They threw them all out. And I think when you think in our own industry, what happens when you throw all those people out? It's a brand new ballgame.
Sure is.
Well, so how do you, is there anybody that you see in our industry that's doing Twitter particularly well right now?
Well, actually, I don't know if you guys have noticed Analytica by Symmetrics. I
have, yes.
Yes. And she's amazing, I think, the woman that's behind that voice, that Analytica voice, because her tweets tend to, and I know you guys have so much great information in your archive. So does Realcomm. So does Ken, 15 years.
Right.
And when you see what Analytica is doing, she's able to pull up I retweeted this morning a great thing from 2014, article on monitoring base commissioning by Jim Sinopoli and the CTO of Symmetrics. And she's got the knowledge of, that was a great piece, the 8 things that go into monitoring base commissioning. And she pulled it up from 2014, retweeted it, got all sorts of, because we have all these new people are in our industry. The thing about her, worked on development, I think, of the Symmetrics data analytics solution. She's not a social media person that they hired because she was good at Snapchat. She's become good at Twitter after 15 years already in data science and analytics. She's just, her game is being played at a whole different level.
Well, she is. She tweets a lot, and it's interesting because I think that Twitter to me is sort of a microcosm of the new, as Jeff Haupt from Automation Integrated says, the integrity economy, the networked economy. Because to be successful on Twitter, it can't just be that you put your own stuff up. You have to put good stuff up, right? But the way you get followers and you curry favor is you tweet other people's stuff, right? You follow other people, and then other people typically will reciprocate and follow you. If you tweet their stuff, they retweet your stuff. So I think it's kind of a little mini cosmon, if you will, of how maybe business, as Ken Sinclair says, the co-competition model works.
Yeah, and I have in my since engaging with you guys, I have not been that concerned about my site or my own Twitter presence. It's been more about my clients. Haystack being a client, I really want to see them gather Twitter followers. Any of my clients, Altura, and I haven't been that concerned about my own following. But I see where it's super important. I think I am learning a lot from what Analytica is doing as well. Very, very cool. Well, listen. And you guys, hats off.
Well, thanks.
To what you guys are achieving. I mean, I think she's coming up behind you guys in terms of really understanding how powerful this stuff is.
Well, I'll tell you something. I saw some of her stuff and just she's on top of it because I retweeted one of her tweets, and next thing I know, she's following me. She's retweeting my tweets, and I mean that's just the way it works. And it's interesting. And I think at least for now, Twitter seems to be the platform of choice for some of what Ken and I would call the young guns in the industry. That tends to be how they tend to roll. So good stuff there. But THerese, help us understand blockchain. And we had a post earlier, and Cade Metz was talking a bit about how he thinks blockchain might be one of the most disruptive technologies to hit the marketplace in a long time. And Ken and I are sort of groping with how this could affect us in terms of building automation controls and smart buildings. What do you think?
I am not a blockchain expert, but of course I do have thoughts. And I think that blockchain in the area of transactive energy, that we're going to move into an era where energy is the equivalent of money, and being able to transact when we all have, I guess, the Tesla power walls in our garage that are saving the energy that we produced from our PVs on our roof during the day so we can still light our houses and charge our cars. We'll be buying and selling energy with our neighbors. And I think to imagine a blockchain piece of code in the naming, actually, so it does kind of come down to Haystack too, to have blockchain in the naming of stuff is going to be super important. I don't know where that is. I think it is very futuristic, and I can't talk to it as an expert. But here's one, so I'll put a period on that and say, here's my next thought, which is just my favorite thing that I ever heard to explain it, was if you were like walking down a street in Manhattan and somebody dropped a piano and everybody took a picture of the piano because they all had their cell phones, we would know that transaction happened. We would not know who dropped the piano, why the piano dropped, or anything else, but we would know what happened, and there would be all this documentation of it. So it would be in the old days of IBM, you had this idea of two-phase commit when they were doing financial transaction processing. Now you can see with blockchain, it's like that two-phase commit. It's happening because many people see the event, record the event, and it's still anonymous.
Well, listen, I just wanted to provide just a basic definition. I did watch I was there when Cade Metz did it, the blockchain being the number one disruptive, and then he did it in Real Conference Live. But the blockchain is a main technical innovation of Bitcoin, where it serves as the public ledger for Bitcoin transactions. Every user is allowed to connect to the network, send new transactions to it, verify transactions, and create new blocks, making it permissionless. The Bitcoin blockchain design has been the inspiration for other cryptocurrencies and replicated databases. But I think what you said about energy being the new money, I mean, that's a neat concept, because ultimately it gets to the point where you have to be able to track it, and the people providing energy aren't going to be connected to the people wanting it through normal media occurrences. So this blockchain would give that kind of a transactional possibility. So that's something that's going to come. But my problem, THerese, is timelines. How long does something like this actually get to our industry and become important, do you think?
Well, here I'm going to mention another name is Josh, of our friends, is Josh Bradford of Work Tech Work. He also does VLab at Stanford, which is a meetup thing. And at one of Josh's, events, it was all about blockchain. And the experts from Silicon Valley that he had on stage said it'll be 10 years.
Wow.
So the exciting stuff right now is that they're practicing with are different little markets. Like there's a market for really high-end sneakers, Air Jordans from 1988 or something. There's a market for polishing. It's a worldwide market. It's a strange market, but it's very vibrant, evidently. And there's a company, an app developer that's using blockchain to do these transactions, bids for how much these shoes should go for. It's working. So it's working in these small markets. And that's a legitimate one. The other thing they said that night is it's going to go through some illegitimate markets first. And be tested out on stuff. I mean, I think that was a clean one they could talk about. I think there's a lot of drugs and pornography and terrible stuff we don't even want to know about that it's going to be used for, but those are going to be like testing grounds.
So the deep net type stuff, but could you guys see it? Is it more secure? Like, for example, could you see a day where the new protocol, instead of being backnet, was something like blockchain? And if so, is it more secure from hackers and stuff like that? Here's another truism, but it's futuristic. But stuff like that grows up it's like kids. It's like raising kids. You want to throw kids in the dirty piles so that they get all the microbes and it gets tested out. You don't want to have bubble babies that never get. And I think that these technologies, when they grow up in the deep net and in all this, being tested worldwide, having all the worst of the hackers are already hacking on them, that actually what comes out is something stronger, and it may be more secure for the fact of emerging from the world. Does that make sense? That the hackers want to keep it safe from the government for all their illicit stuff, so they'll make it hack proof. Right? Maybe.
Well, yes, that's just it. If it comes out of that side of the equation, it might permanently be tainted, by the actual construction and the formulation of it. It seems so.
I know. It's kind of like you have to take your head and kind of screw it on a different way, though. Too. It's like what makes it secure is like you think, I'll get something developed from IBM in the internal labs of IBM, and it'll be the most secure encryption. I mean, I think this is the way the world of security has gone this far. It'll be semantic, totally controlled by the best labs of America, and yet it turns out to be, because it isn't being like constantly tested and probed by all the evildoers. It's not that secure. Because it has come out of a lab. And this stuff that comes out of the depths where they have to, it's secure because the black hats have figured out already all the ways to penetrate, and then it got protected for all those ways. It's more secure.
So cool, THerese. So listen, again, month and a half, or about a month from Realcomm IBCon, what are some of the things you're thinking about now? They sort of came out. We just talked about IBM and Watson and artificial intelligence. That was sort of one of the topics that came up. But any thoughts about that, or smart cities, or what's on your plate? What's got you percolating?
Right. Well, there was one that I really would like to follow up on, and there were so many great sessions. This happened to be one that was moderated by Jason Hauk of Hepta Systems, and he had on the podium CBRE, Brian Oswald, so Paul Oswald's son, talking about I mean, those of us who have been in the industry for a few years are so interested about ESI purchased by CBRE. Something powerful is going to come out of that. And here was Brian kind of talking about what they're doing. And also on the podium, I have to mention, was like SAP and a representative from GE Predicts. And they were talking about more the enterprise databases, these like IBM Watson as well. SAP's, I think, is called HANA, but big data analytics. Before they would have called them data warehousing platforms. When they meet our Sky Foundries, which of course ESI and is a Sky Foundry customer in the past. They were big contributors. Brian himself, big contributor to Haystack, really understands our world and, in fact, leaders of our world. When those two worlds collide, and that's what I thought I saw in that session of that, and obviously I can barely talk about it because I think it's exciting and I need to follow up with Jason and Brian, and I'd really like to talk about the merging. I think the title of it, I actually have the book here, was operational databases, operational analytics databases. So think Analytica or Sky Foundry, or when they meet these big enterprise data warehousing, how is it effective to query and use those two things together? So I think that's super interesting. And from the standpoint of seeing, wow, CBRE/ESI is sort of a walking, talking example of where this technology is going to go.
So they're kind of in the petri dish right now.
Yeah, and I think that's a big, interesting experiment, and I want to follow it.
Well, it's so cool because we talk to a lot of people, Kenny and I do, and a lot of people seem to think that our industry is about 5 to 10 years behind the IoT world, right? And if you want to know where we're going, we just sort of look at what IoT is doing, and I think maybe the only place that we're all figuring out together is how to use big data. I mean, I think we might all be sort of on par with that. So cool stuff with that. So you're going to be in Tampa at the Haystack meeting. Do you know yet? Next.
You probably. It seems very far in the future, but we really got to get ramping about it. And every month, I mean, there's going to be a super August article. Yeah. I love the blog that they just set up. I love that they keep getting new members. Very exciting. And I just mentioned Jason of HEPTA, and actually he's involved in one of the new members too. It's IoT Juarez, but another big trend, right? That they were HEPTA super master system integrators. Now they're product developers. They're software developers. And that software development arm joined Haystack. Pretty exciting stuff, I think.
Oh, very, very exciting.
Teresa, let me get that right. So HEPTA Systems bought IoT Juarez? Was that?
I don't think they bought it. I think they launched it.
Okay, so it's internal to HEPTA. Well, I tell you, Eric, those guys are moving and grooving, huh?
They sure are, man. They sure are. All right, THerese. Well, listen, we're kind of up against it time-wise, but our guest this week has been THerese Sullivan from buildingcontext.me. Be sure to check THerese out. THerese, hope we can get you on next month sometime. And we want to know what's going on in the Silicon Valley. We have dubbed you the Queen of Silicon Valley, and your king is Josh Bradshaw. So...
I have to say, I go further than that because I'm from Chicago, and there's interesting stuff happening in our world all over the world.
You know what? You're right about that. And so how about it's an election year, so let's forget about Trump and Hillary. Let's just go with Queen THerese, the first. All right, THerese Sullivan, buildingcontext.me. Check her out.